Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today, I have a very special guest all the way from West Fargo, North Dakota, Jackson Strom. In 2019, he combined his entrepreneurial spirit and passion for the profession to start Strom Architecture. Growing up with a passion for art, nurtured by his mother, Jackson's career progressed from helping his father build homes and pouring concrete during high school to graduating with a Master of Architecture degree from North Dakota State University, while gaining experience with local architecture firms along the way. Applying business practices learned from various fields, Jackson's goal is to continually strengthen the client experience and internal processes. In addition to building strong relationships, Jackson attributes much of his early success to simplifying the sometimes overly complex architectural process and eliminating surprises regarding the deliverables and fee structure. Strom brings a positive energy to every interaction with the goal that his clients are just as excited at the end of the process as they were at the beginning. When not focused on the building the business, Jackson spends time with his wife, Lindsay, their 3-year-old son, Sully, and newborn, Oliver. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lance. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I loved your bio for multiple reasons, and I've got some questions teed up for you about them. So but before we get into exactly what you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis over there at your firm, tell us how you got here, starting your firm, and then about that entrepreneurial spirit. That really speaks to me.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, it's been a short but long journey, it seems like, so growing up in South Dakota, my dad farmed, kind of helped him throughout my early years. And like the bio says, kind of got into, assisting him with, building a few spec homes. And then also throughout high school, pouring concrete with a local contractor. So, at the time, didn't really know how that would have, come into benefit me later on in life, but it was just something I was doing at the time. Senior year, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Talked to my guidance counselor, and she's like, "Well, you always liked art. You've always been good at drawing. Just growing up, a lot of sketching, and I always have a sketch pad. I'd be drawing." Michael Jordan or, Air Jordans. I'd be drawing a lot of like basketball shoes, like this as a kid, like just strange things you gravitate towards, but I'd always be drawing. She kind of said, "Hey, well, you've always liked art. What do you think about going in architecture school?" And I was like, "Well, that doesn't sound like a bad idea." But, I didn't really hadn't thought about it much prior to that until she brought that up. So I said, "Well, where's the nearest architecture school?" And it was NDSU. So that's where I landed here. Throughout that journey, though, kind of starting at that point, started getting architecture books. I think the first few books I got were like Frank Gehry, of course, Frank Lloyd Wright. But just started to slowly be paging through these books and just kind of being amazed at, the things that were out there, because it was all pretty new to me at the time. And then throughout college, it just started, I started working at a firm. I got a job when I was like, I think 20 or so, like second year in college, I think. And just started to really, get that much more interested in the profession, between, different books, different experiences that I gained during that first position, just really started to become a itch that I was just continually scratching. I remember getting books from Amazon, a new architecture book, and I would like spend the whole night just paging through that and kind of, oohing and ahhing over different architects' work, and just became a passion of mine since then. So,
and then tell us about the firm. How did the firm? What gave birth to the firm? A lot of folks either are laid off and they have no choice, sort of like me and Al. And then there's other folks that just get fed up with where they're at with the current firm. Are either of those scenarios what pushed you to start yours?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my story is a little bit different. I also, again, growing up watching my dad run his own business essentially on the farm. I think I just always had it in the back of my head that that's what I was going to do at some point. I will say there was times at, my previous firms where I thought to myself, well, maybe I could maybe I could stay here. I'm not sure. But once I became licensed and, we had our first child, it was kind of like, hey, it's now or never.
Mm-hmm.
And it just became a decision that I made, and I stuck to it, and I wasn't going to let anything talk me out of it. And I think something I maybe glazed over too is throughout college and then on, I was always getting different business books, and for a while it was kind of like, well, I suppose maybe a lot of people do this, but then, you get, 50 business books stacked up on your bookshelf, and you're like, well, maybe I do have an interest in, running a business. I suppose not everybody's reading this kind of stuff in their free time, but again, I think it was always in the back of my head, running my own firm, but up until becoming licensed and having our first child, then it just became more of a commitment. Yeah.
Oh, so when you started your firm and then you left like what I would say a pretty well-known firm regionally as far as the architect who was running it, was there any lessons that you took from there versus good or bad? I know, for example, when Alex and me personally, when I got laid off from the firm I was working for in Boulder, I thought they were terrible business people. It just point blank. And I was like, my goal is to never lay anybody off. I know that's a lofty goal. Yeah. But like, and then there was other things from the practice I thought we could improve on and tweak and just do much better than they were doing. And so far it's all the fruit has been on display, for us. But is there any kind of similarities for you?
I mean, there's definitely throughout my 12 years working for a few other architects, there's definitely things that I took note of, like, oh, I do or don't want to be doing that, when and if I run my own firm someday. But then it's funny, there's also things that I would say to myself, gosh, why would you ever do that? Or that's ridiculous. But then once you start running your own firm, you're like, oh, well, I guess I can see why this or that happened. I think one of the biggest things that came out of just my experience is just seeing the value in relationships and, really trying to build those relationships over time, whether it's with past clients, with builders, trying to just keep up with people as far as, touch base with them every so often. I think especially when you're first starting out the firm, it's been really great just to see how many people will give you a chance, especially if they've had a past relationship with you. And so we've been really fortunate to have just, probably all the main builders in the area really, kind of give us a chance with different projects. So that's really helped us hit the ground running. So
yeah, how did that bridge happen for you? Some folks like I think Julie Snow tells a pretty famous story about like basically a client approached her and that was her off ramp. Like, oh, sure. Talk about your off ramp to where you guys, how that happened.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would start, it's funny, Lance, because I would start having conversations, I just started, again, these different builders I had good relationships with, there was just a few that I would talk to and I'd say, I just kind of run a few of these ideas by them saying like, well, if a guy were to start his own thing, and things like that, like, do you think there's a market for that? Do you think, there's any merit in that? And, they really there was a few different builders that kind of took me under their wing in a sense that, oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. There'd be a market for that. Or we'd have projects that, we would definitely share with you in the next 6 months to a year. And, it got to the point where, I think even before I probably walked out the door, there was a few different people that had called me and, you get a little like, it puts you in an awkward spot because you're like, well, I didn't really know anybody even knew I was going to jump off and start my own thing. But, that'll be happening very soon. But, as of right now, kind of those conversations. So I wouldn't say there was some real big project that, oh, now I got this project. I can do my own thing, but it was a handful of projects that were decent sized projects. So it wasn't like some $10 million home, but it was probably a handful of, just smaller projects. Yeah. But smaller projects in the sense that they weren't just bathroom remodels, they were new homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. But let's go back a little bit and talk about to your hands-on construction experience. Again, very much a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of that's where I started as 13 years old working for my dad's best friend, tearing off roofs. loved every minute of it and then learned every trade moving into architecture.
Yep.
So you have hands-on experience. So your dad built spec homes. Was he doing that like in addition to farming?
Yeah. He's kind of like a, I don't know, Renaissance man. It was one of the last of the kind. So yeah, I mean, he before I was old enough to help him do such a thing, he had built a few spec homes with another contractor in our hometown. And my dad's this type of guy that, I don't know, just a quick learner, very hands-on, very like do-it-yourself guy. And so yeah, during high school, I think we built he built two different spec homes, and then my brother and I had helped him with it. So it was just kind of between planting and harvesting, we're gonna get this house on the ground and start building this, and you guys are gonna help me.
So has it crossed your mind to potentially do design plus build in the future?
Oh geez, no, it hasn't. And I know there's probably a lot of reasons for it, but I will say a lot of the work that has come our way is from builders that, specifically say, hey, unless you start building the projects, we'll definitely keep sending projects your way. So I don't know. I don't know if I have an appetite for it, but I'm sure maybe you could tell me otherwise.
Well, I think everybody should do their own development at least once. And even if their own development is just their house, done.
Yeah.
Like that's as just so you can, because I one of the questions I'm going to get to is how you've simplified the overly complex design process.
Yep.
And we've done much the same. We, especially even through our proposals, but like what I'm getting at with the development is then like, you're all of a sudden back in that homeowner's shoes.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working with your wife about this.
Yeah.
Then it's a really interesting experience. And I think everybody should do it once if they're an architect. One last thing about the construction thing is, do you think architects right now, like, you're a recent graduate in the sense of both of us are, I mean, we're not too far off from college. Do you think young architects are getting enough hands-on experience building? I mean, obviously it helped you.
I don't know. I guess I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming probably not. I think any bit of that experience is extremely helpful. But yeah, I don't know for a fact, Lance, but my assumption is they're probably not. But I'd argue though too, if I hadn't done a few of those projects with my dad and poured concrete myself, I wouldn't have gotten that additional experience either. So
yeah, 100%. In your bio, you stress and on your website too that your firm, simplifies the overly complex architectural design process. So it's a two-part question here. Why do you think others make it so complex? Because I agree with that. A lot of other folks do make it very complex. And then how have you solved this problem?
Yeah, I would say some of the complexity, I think, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but I think what we've tried to do is just really simplify it. So when we're kind of, marketing our services to our client, we want to show them exactly what goes into each process, each step, and exactly what the deliverables are. I feel like working at in my past experience, maybe some of that was a little fuzzy at times. And I think it just goes over better in the end, and you have less messy conversations if the client knows exactly what they're getting up front versus conversations of, okay, we got this. When does the next step happen? What are the other deliverables for this? Like, what are the additional costs for this? Like, we're really trying to, I don't want to say productize, but just have it a little more a service, a fee, a service, a fee, a service, a fee versus, nothing against the hourly rate, but the hourly fee. But I will say, like, having a lot of conversations with clients prior to running our firm, it seemed like clients liked that hourly rate up front. They said, oh, great. That's, that's what your hourly rate is. Great. And then after 6 months, though, it was kind of like, hey, when's this going to end? When are these invoices going to stop coming? Like, how much longer is this going to take you? And I just try to think of it like, how do we remedy that? I don't, by no means am I saying what we've done is perfect, but it's worked good for our clientele, I guess.
So was this idea from the outset, or did you literally design it sort of on the fly as you started working with your clients maybe in that first year? How did it evolve?
Um, it was somewhat just from the outset. I mean, it wasn't like some grand idea, but it
Yeah.
was just more so. I mean, I just don't like having those conversations with the client. I don't like, I don't want to get on the phone for a half hour with the client and give them an overview of exactly what we worked on, how many hours were, into that, or give them a 2-page, email describing every hour that was put in their project. Because in my experience, in the end, yeah, the client pays that, but they're still not happy about it. Like,
Mhm.
okay, thanks for the description. Like, okay, we understand there was an amount of time put into this, but what they're not telling you, I feel like, is we're not happy about this, but sure, we'll pay it. And I think our goal is to have the client really just fully understand what they're getting themselves into, what the investment is up front, I guess.
Do you think it's also helped with your design, actually the work you're producing, being sort of in this structure that you've set up? Is it helping your bottom line? Is it helping the design? I mean, can you speak to any of that?
I'd say, we're a small firm where there's 6 of us now. I'd say right now, yes, it really has helped the design process, helped the bottom line. I will say, as we grow, I'm sure there's a number of people, a number of your team that, once you pass that, maybe it has to look a little different, because, of course, right now I'm the one that's doing that upfront design. But I suppose as your team grows, you have more and more people doing design work. Maybe there's a different way that's got to be kind of spun, but as
Yeah.
of right now, it's worked really well.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I liked how you had it outlined on your website. That just made it clean and clear. Are you finding, I mean, do you find that people actually, I find it all the time. They have no idea what an architect does. They have no idea how an architect does it. And, for me, what pains me is I'm not a member of the AIA. And for multiple reasons we don't have to get into, but one of the things I do listen to, on Mark LePage's podcast,
Yep.
he had the president on there, I think, or one of the higher ups. I can't remember what exactly his title was, but he was one of the things he tried to, push, like to say that they do, is that we teach the public what architects do. Nonsense in my world, because I am going to these meetings and that I'm having to explain, which is fine for me because actually that's how our proposals are set up. Like,
Yep.
are you finding that this also basically kind of takes that away from that? Or are you still seeing that kind of an issue?
Well, I think a lot for us, for our situation, a lot of what an architect does per se is kind of, throughout our process, when we're detailing our process to the client, that's really informing them what the
Yeah.
architect does, or at least how we do our thing. But yeah, absolutely, we get that question a lot. Like, well, geez, we need an architect, or we think we need an architect, but what exactly do you guys all do? Or sometimes there's, after initial design's done, there's some clients that kind of feel like that's when the interior designer takes it over. And of course, we'd like to see us take the project till the end, but it's just everybody kind of has a different, and until you inform them, everybody kind of has a different idea, it seems like, what an architect does in their eyes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when you started the firm, was it just you, and then started multiplying very quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it was just me. It was probably a happy accident that it was right prior to the pandemic. So it was just kind of holed up in our house and, working out of our, extra bedroom, and just working a lot. And I can't remember how long after we first started, we did get an intern involved, Grace. But yeah, when I first started, probably for the first, I bet 6 months, I was probably on my own.
What gave
But
you the confidence to make that her first hire?
I think it was just a lot of the confidence, probably because it was part-time team member. I bet if it was if I would have tried to do full-time, that would have been, I think it just took baby steps for me, so that's probably what helped with that. And also, I think I looked at just all the different daily tasks that were needing to be done. And it's just like, one person can only do so much. And you kind of felt like you're leaving, whether it's projects out there or money out there, like you started to like look at that on paper and it was just kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. And then did Grace turn into full-time, and then was the actual real full-time hire, like from the get-go, an easier swallow?
Grace actually did not turn into full-time because she left after school to go, I forget where she ended up going, but
Okay.
she's not in our area anymore. But then the next intern became full-time. Yep. That was the first full-time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, did you have any nerves? Because, you look at the salary and you understand how much, like, oh, wow, now all of a sudden the responsibility level, and you're a father of two too. So you already have the responsibility going for you, plus running your own firm and all the other stuff. But like, a lot of people are very nervous about this very first hire. And as somebody who has a business partner, like, I feel spoiled compared to sole proprietors like yourself. Like,
yeah,
my confidence level is backed up by Al. Yours is, you're on your own,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I looked at our proposals, looked at, kind of the projects we had on our books. That in addition to like, a business advisor, that's probably the closest I think I have to a partner.
Okay.
So that helps. That helped. But yeah, I think a lot of it just came down to looking at the work we had on our books, let's say, and it was just kind of felt like a no-brainer. It was like, well, for sure, this is money. And again, that's the nice thing about the fixed fee too, Lance, is you're able to see like, this is exactly what we have on the books. It's not, well, hey, if we can put this many hours into these projects, this is what it could be,
Yeah, I agree. The fixed fee is, I would say 99% of our projects are fixed fee at this point too. And the little detail I think that I would say to the audience is about that is Jackson was saying, basically, right away, it's okay. They love the hourly. They're like, oh, 100, like, let's just pretend. Let's say the hourly is $150. Well, that's a small number, right? That's easily digestible. You can compute that in your brain as a client. But then that multiplies, and then all the pain comes. Whereas if you present a fixed fee right away, you're basically doing the sticker shock right away. It just is what it is.
Exactly. Well, and what else is nice about that, Lance, is to that point, piggyback on that, is the sticker shock is right away, and then you see if the client has the appetite for that investment. Maybe they want to go to a different option, but they're able to see that up front versus seeing that in 6 months when they're already frustrated with it, and then they're seeing a bigger number, so it's added frustration. So they're able to see exactly what that number is up front, and if they even want to, invest in your services or not.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned in your first 3 years of practice on your own?
Let's see. The biggest lesson, maintain relationships. I would say, I feel like some of the toughest stuff is just the smallest stuff. It's the stuff you don't think is going to be the tough stuff. It's the, maybe different hard conversations you need to have that aren't in the end really that, they don't end up being that big a deal. Sometimes you're making a mountain out of a molehill. But I think I'm kind of going all around here, but I'd say the biggest lesson would be we're probably really just trying to keep pushing the ball up the hill every day. Like, I feel like anytime in the past where I've kind of I don't want to say let the guard down, but say, oh, well, now there's a little bit of time to breathe. It's like you're quickly reminded that, oh, wait, now there's some other project or some other fire or some other, it's just like, I think you just need to keep that momentum going, whether it's, reaching out for new projects, just really trying to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
So I say scrap all that and say, just put yourself out there, keep trying for the things that you think may be out of your reach. I'd say, try to engage with those builders you think, are maybe out of your reach, or engage with those clients you think that are out of your reach. Just put yourself out there. I think it's tough to do sometimes, but the more you get used to it, the easier it is.
Yeah. Yeah. The word was a word you've been using quite a bit on this interview, and that's relationships. And so, your business sounds like it was built on former relationships and then finding new relationships. How are you prospecting? for those new relationships? Is it word of mouth? And have you guys had to do much digital marketing at all?
We've done some digital marketing, more so just to get, further extend our social media, things like that. I'm not sure if any work has come from marketing. I think a lot of it's word of mouth. We've started getting projects from, even just cold emails, sending out cold emails to different builders in other areas that, we know do great work, and just kind of send an email, see if we can get a meeting set up with them, and just kind of learn more about how they go about assembling their team. And, a lot of it, I feel like a lot of it is if you're able to have a conversation with someone, there's a lot of good that can come from that. It's sometimes those conversations seem scary from the outside, but if you're able to just connect with someone, people like to work with people they like, essentially, and I mean, of course your work needs to back that up. Mm-hmm. But I think the cold emails have been really beneficial for us. But now, of course, that's when we have plenty of work on our plate already, but still reaching out to other builders that we know do great work that we want to potentially collaborate with in the future.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think I've heard anybody say they've gotten success from cold emails. I wonder if it's always interesting to me though, when people pop up in your email that you, let's say was a past client or whatever, and then all of a sudden, or you talk to them for some reason, and you just hit them at the right time. Maybe They are in the process of looking for a new architect for whatever reason. Right. And then it was like, wow, that was a little bit of providence there, making it happen. Yeah.
Well, I think the more you have those discussions with different builders or whoever, if you can communicate with them and listen to them, they're often going to be telling you, yeah, here are the things that, we're not really liking about our past relationships with these other architects. Like, can you bring a remedy to that? And then, so yeah, that's been good.
Yeah. We're running up on the half hour here, Jackson. This has been great. Yeah. Two last questions that I ask everybody. First one is, knowing what you know now, and if you could go back in time, even before 2019, when you first started your business, what is one piece of advice you'd give your former self?
I'd say start earlier,
Wow.
Just get licensed and start earlier. I will say, with our first child being born, that was kind of the catalyst to get moving. So maybe that's just what I needed. And maybe a lot of these different relationships wouldn't have been formed that greatly before that too. But I just looked back at it. I think sometimes these things feel much scarier than once you get in them. I mean, there's things all, every day that, that you run into that are issues, but sometimes it's scarier on the outside looking in. And I sometimes think if I would have more time, even, how it goes, Lance, when you have a family, you're being pulled in a lot of different directions. But also maybe that's what you need to keep you efficient with your time. But sometimes I just think, if I would have started 5-10 years earlier, what would it feel like? But 5 years earlier would maybe beat the number.
Yeah. That answer is I have heard that answer from this category of people the most, not architects actually, but real estate moguls, investors, developers, all of that. I would have just done more sooner. So very interesting response. I love that, Jackson. This has been great. If people listening to this and they want to find out more about you and your firm, where can they find and follow you guys?
Yeah. Our social media is Strom Arch, Instagram, and then our website is Strom Architecture. Well, wait, our website is Strom Arch. Strom Architecture, I think, would get you there too. So yeah. But yeah, social media, we try to be pretty active on that, try to keep posting new projects and what we're up to. So beautiful. Yeah. Jackson, thanks so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. Hope the audience says too. Wish you guys nothing but the best and more success as we finish out the year. Thanks, Lance. Really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. See ya.